Hello, everybody. Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan, Living Life with Purity. We're back in the studio here. Got our good friend Alex Fiato. Say hello, Alex.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, and he's there, so he's alive. So there's a wellness check. We have proof of life is there. Sometimes we didn't know he kind of went AWOL on me for about a month or so. He was
depressed,
running around. He was
sanding floors.
He ran to New Orleans to work on his daughter's home down there. They're selling, so he didn't tell me he was down doing workman work until he sends me a photo of these sanded floors. And
it was a miracle I could stand up and do it.
It
actually helped me. I couldn't lift or bend too much, but I could actually back and forth.
He could run the machine and did good work. He does good work with sanding those floors. Finish came out really nice, so good job.
Thank you.
Kudos. Well, today we want to kind of lighten things up a little bit in this episode. I want to talk a little bit about a fellow that was very instrumental to me in my life, and that was Father Robert Hoevel. And a lot of you folks may have known Father Hoevel from the early years at Sylvan Springs when I was running the place. And Father Hoevel was kind of like an uncle to me. He wasn't really my uncle, but he was always around the family. Every Thursday, he was at the house coming by to check on us, just right down the street. My parents were instrumental in helping Father Hoevel build the parish I grew up in, that being St. Henry's on the southeast side of Fort Wayne. That was back in 1956. And so a lot of things happened in 1956 that was kind of formative.
Before you were born.
Right, 4 years before I was born, that were going on. The apparition happened in Rome City with Our Lady of America.
Oh, sure, that's right.
There was a prophecy that was made in 1956 that a 40-year-old man would come along before the end of the century and reclaim the property, return it to its greatest work ever, and that apparently was me.
Do you know if Father Hoevel was aware? Was he aware of that apparition or no?
No, he was not aware of the apparition because it was not really publicized.
Yeah, you're right.
It was kind of held under wraps, and it was distributed, I think, on a limited basis in the 1960s.
Okay.
When they did the publication of the first edition of the diaries, and it was, I think they did like 1,000 copies. And
so
that
very limited. Yeah.
Yeah, it got distributed around to a number of priests and other bishops, and they probably circular filed it. Most of them would probably just throw that stuff away if they got it. If it.
We got better things to do.
Well, if it wasn't front burner attention, they probably just put it to the back of the pile, kind of stuff. Because they're so busy.
If there wasn't a check attached to the.
No reason to act on it. There was no money involved, so they had to stay home and.
They're so secretive about the money they collect. They don't even thank you if you give them a large sum of money. I don't know. Is that true?
Well, it happened in our family.
Oh, okay. That's where I got it from.
My mother made, when she thought she was dying after my dad passed away, she wanted to make a substantial donation to the church, so that as the heirs, that when we were dealing with her the burial and all like that at that end, we weren't questioning about to make a donation to the church. She just did it ahead of time.
Sure, she was old school.
Right. So she wrote him one of these big ass checks, and gave it to a visiting priest who was there that day for the mass, put it in his hand, and he just basically put it in his pocket and didn't acknowledge anything. I don't think he looked at it, but it was a big ass check. I mean, a lot of people.
He looked at it at some point.
Well, I'm sure when he had to turn it in to the church secretary, but in all that time, nobody ever picked up a phone and called her. Nobody ever wrote a note saying thank you or acknowledging it.
As though you didn't exist.
Right.
And the normal etiquette, like if my birthday, I get a check of that size, you can come over every Saturday and Sunday for spaghetti and meatballs for the rest of your life. Well, I mean, it's normal. Thank you. That's all.
Right.
Thank you.
Common courtesies. You acknowledge the gifts, whether they be large or small. You acknowledge these things.
That's right.
This is called courtesy, and this is being kind, and this is what good people do. But it's just amazing that several years have gone by and there's never been any acknowledgement of this at all.
Yeah.
And so she's not sitting there waiting for the
No,
phone to
your mother
ring or
did
anything
it.
like that.
She did it for the goodness
Right,
of her
but
heart.
but it is a little concerning that there was no real regard for that. It was just assumed that it was, normal. It was their obligation to be doing these things. So what do you want from me? This is your job. You're supposed to. Well,
You're
I'll give you
supposed to.
50,000 reasons why you should pick up a phone and say,
You
hey,
betcha.
because you know what? There might be more.
It's good. It's good business to acknowledge.
Well, anything. Be a good studious custodian of things. Don't be a jerk. But unfortunately, so this is where we're at. But I just kind of find it funny, and you brought it up.
Well, I had to bring it up because this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with many people within the Roman Catholic Church that don't have manners and don't have respect.
Well, I think they've gotten this hubris. They sort of expect everything is to be given to you. Hey, I need this. Get me one. I had a priest was sent in to be sort of a temp at one of the churches, and I'm always trying to help out and do these things. And this guy leans into me and the guy who was the custodian at the church, and he says, and he was one of these Nigerian priests, that they send all around the place to fill in at different things. And so he didn't have his own church, but he was always a temp wherever he went. So, but he turns to us, he says, I need a large screen TV, very big, Wi-Fi.
This is true.
Yeah, I need new big TV, very large.
So, what'd you do?
Well, I said, you've already got a TV. I said, we're not here to deliver you everything that Best Buy or Costco can provide for you. I said, why do you need such a large TV? He says, I must see it from the other room.
Oh, of course.
And I said, well, why don't you just go into the other room? He says, because I work in here. And I said, well, why don't you put the TV in where you work?
Right.
We can do that for you. No, you don't understand. I need large TV,
Oh,
Wi-Fi.
dear God, what have we got? We're importing.
You make sure it happens. And I just look at the custodian and I just go, yeah, right. And we both left. And so the custodian looks at me and says, what are we going to do with this guy? I said, I'll take care of it. And he says, so I went and I got one of these Roku cards, which allows regular TV then become internet ready.
Okay.
And so I got him a $40 Roku card, took it back to his place, put it in the TV, and said, there you go, Wi-Fi. There you go. Deal with it. They said, you want a bigger? I said, you want a bigger TV? Go buy one.
But for even going out of your way and doing that is quite.
Well, I understood
gracious.
the need for the Wi-Fi because he wanted to watch his Nigerian TV, but he had to get that over the internet.
And he wanted to watch all of his compatriots being slaughtered by.
I don't.
You told me that something's going on there that they're overtaking.
Well, they're killing off Christians in Nigeria.
Well, there you go. Have a front row seat.
Islamists, but the Pope apparently thinks that's part of the course because Pope Francis says the Islam is taking over Europe and it's inevitable. So we all just sit back and watch it happen.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, he's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, along with them faggots.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm drawing you into an area that.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry.
well,
I didn't call
Pope
him
Francis called the gay priests and the troublesome ones faggots. And
I
this happened a few months ago.
Couldn't believe
and
it.
everyone was alarmed. He says, did he say that? He says, yes, he said that.
Did he say-
Yeah, but no one's followed up on it.
Oh, dear God.
It's almost like he's been running for president of the United States. And
Right.
I had a follow-up question for him on that. Hey,
Right. Yeah.
you called your priests faggots. What's
Yeah,
the
what's
deal
going
with
on
that?
here?
Well, they're just the flirty ones.
Wah, wah.
Just the colorful ones, I guess.
Oh, jeez.
Put it that way. But these guys wonder why
You can't make
attendance
this
is
stuff up,
waning.
can you? Is this actually real? This actually really
It's
happened?
going on. It's part of the colorful world we live in now, and it's nut job city, but I think it's one of the reasons why, the church in attendance and growth and things like this with our young people is failing. You were talking about it. I said, how many young people were at church the other day? He says, well, the kids with their families. I said, besides that, how about the 20-somethings, the singles?
You see them.
Where are they at? No one sees them.
Right.
There's a few here and there.
Correct. But
but it's rare.
What percentage were you saying of the people that are not going to church? We said 40% or?
What's that, in the United States in general?
Yeah.
Oh, over 60%.
60%.
Only about 40% attend church, whatever their denomination.
Yeah.
And that's all falling across the board, not only just since COVID, but I think since people have gotten to be more, cynical, younger people with, what's going on. They don't see truth in action.
See, and I
And
apologize.
so they pull out hypocrites.
I apologize to you for taking you away from a real priest, Father Hoevel, with some of these little jibs and jabs.
Well, but we'll get to it because it all adds to the point of the story. So, Father Hoevel was living with me at the Rome City property there, and he started in 2001, and Father Hoevel was dealing with cancer. He had heart surgery, a couple of years before that. So he had these battles going on, and everyone thought that Father Hoevel was imminently dying. And he did.
Probably was, yeah.
Well,
he probably was sick
he
on the
did.
first.
He did. The doctors did. So he gave all his money to the church. Donated it all in because he figured, I'm not long for this world. I'll assign it now.
Okay.
As people are getting older, like my mom did, these people want to take care of business.
Right.
They still have control over this, and they're going to do it their way. Good for them. Well, Father Hoevel basically emptied his coffers and gave it all to the diocese, and that was Bishop Darcy at that time.
And he gave it even knowing some of the flaws of these people that were running things, correct?
Yeah, in spite of it, he was
going to give it to the church.
Correct.
All right.
It was his life,
Okay.
and so who would expect anything different?
Okay.
And so Father Hoevel makes this large donation, and then proceeds to move in with me. And instead of dying, he got better and started thriving. So much so that he bought a new car.
Did he?
Yeah, he needed a new car, to get around because they were assigning him because he was now located in the exact geological center of the diocese. Is that the right word? The geological?
Geographical?
Geographical.
Okay.
Geological.
Okay.
He's in the middle of the rock.
Well,
I know, it's a geo
there's
there
rocks
somewhere.
there, yeah.
All right, I'll get you. So anyway, he's in the geographic center of the diocese, so he can get to South Bend in an hour. He can get to Fort Wayne in an hour. So they plugged him in as being the the go-to substitute. If somebody was sick and they needed somebody to cover at their parish,
so he would.
they call him Father Hoevel
He was working
to
again.
pop in because over his career he'd served at a lot of these parishes already, and so he's very familiar. So anyway, he was doing this, so he needed a new car to get around. So he buys a new car, and he's back doing work and all like this. But his name was Father Robert Hoevel, and I had working for me at the property at that time. A husband and wife team. He was one of my maintenance guys, and she was working in the kitchen and around the house, helping with household duties, helping Ruby keep the place clean and ready for the next events and things like this. And her name was Jackie. And Jackie and Butch were their names. They had a real problem being Protestants and trying to talk to Father Hoevel. They couldn't bring it upon themselves to call him Father because their teaching said no one shall call anyone else Father but me. And so they're reading into this. They were taking that passage to heart, and so they refused to call Father Hoevel Father Hoevel. But what they chose to call him on their own was Bob.
Bob?
Bob. And they would say it like, Bob, forcefully. Not just, hey, Bob.
Was it Father Robert Hoevel?
Yeah. But they just,
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob. And they were very emphatic about that. And it was, it was not very respectful on any level. Bob.
The-
They're being very
Part of the
emphatic
Bob Club.
about it. Well, it was like,
Are you
So anyway.
part of the Bob Club?
they were bobbing and weaving, but they wanted to be very emphatic about, I'm calling you Bob, not Robert.
What did Father Hoevel think when they were calling
Well,
him?
he was just like, he just looked at me and I just go, and he just
Right.
goes, oh, so he just like, oh boy, okay.
Poor Father.
He probably heard worse in his life. So they refused to call him Father Hoevel or even Robert or give him any kind of praise or designation for his role. It was just fine. Father Hoevel was
He
fine.
didn't care one way or the other, right?
Well,
I mean,
he thought it was disrespectful, but he understood their point on it. He thought they were flawed, but he wasn't going to make an issue out of
he had
it.
enough problems. Huh?
Hey, it was like, what's for dinner? As long as it's not chicken breast, I'm good, because he couldn't stand chicken breast because that's what they gave him as a heart patient. So you give him chicken breast, you're going to have fighting words out of
Yeah,
him
had
because he
enough
didn't want any
chicken
more
in his
chicken
mouth.
breast. So Father Hoevel is on the mend, and he's doing more exciting things, physical things, and he's out walking around the property, and which was pretty aggressive because the property, had all these hills and stuff like that. So
He was feeling good.
he was feeling good. He was out trying to work the body and things like this. And so his nephew ends up coming to the property one day, and he brings this really nice, fashionable 10-speed bicycle with him. And he'd modified it so the handlebars were different, so it's more upright, easier for an older man to ride.
It wasn't your 1950s standard.
No. It was
Twin.
modified for an older man to be able to ride.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And they thought that having the gears on the bike would make it easier for Father Hoevel to navigate the hilly
Okay.
terrain, which was wise.
Right. Theoretically.
Right. So Father Hoevel had his bike there, and this new 10-speed had handbrakes. Okay. But Father Havel's bike had the old coaster brake. No gears. It was a basic,
Twin.
yeah, a basic.
Or whatever they call those bikes, yeah. The one we got when we were kids.
Yeah, the basic cheap
Make a
model.
cheap model, yeah.
Right. The coaster brake, and that was Father Hoevel. So the nephew traded him so that he didn't feel like, so Father Hoevel didn't feel like he was just getting something. Charity. Father Hoevel didn't really like being treated like a charity case. He wanted to pay his own way. He was a man. I can take care of things. Here, you take my bike, we'll trade, And so his nephew took the other bike back in trade, and I don't know what he did with it, but it's gone. So Father Hoevel had this new bike. And unbeknownst to me, I'm working in the building one day. I'm clear up in one of the nether regions, clear up one of the upper floors, away from all humanity, just up working, probably doing demolition work. I forget what it was. Went over the loudspeaker, and it wasn't just an internal PA system that we had, because we had all these floors and all this space
Went all
to
over,
cover.
all over.
Well, we also had a loudspeaker on the water tower, 150 foot up in the air, and this loudspeaker was facing towards the lake.
Ooh, bouncing
right
off
across the road. Well, it echoed throughout the
everybody
canyon.
in town.
Everyone in town. If there's an all call, everyone in town would hear what was going on up there.
Did something happen?
Well, I'm working. I'm up on a ladder. I'm clear up in a corner. I've got all this stuff going on. I got an open bucket of something that was like mortar mix or something was going on. I'm into it. When over the loudspeaker comes this horrifying screech. Larry, your priest is down! Your priest is down!
It's like a cop saying, officer down.
Yeah, well, it was, your priest is down! Your priest is down! So this is the horrifying scream that's coming out. So it's being broadcast everywhere. And as I'm making my way down through the building, I'm running, as fast as I can as this 41-year-old, pudgy guy trying to make it down this corridors and down to find out what the hell's going on. I get down to the main lobby, and there's Jackie. She said, Larry, your priest is down. He's out there. I said, out where? Over there.
Well, she did acknowledge him as a priest at least.
Yeah,
He
well,
went
your
up a
priest is
notch
down.
once
She could,
he was-
but anyway, so she's having this conniption fit. No one's going to help the man. They're all waiting
Never
for
mind,
me.
you go ahead and do it.
Yeah, we can't be the first responder. We can't touch this guy. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, but no one was there. So I'm running out there, and turns out Father Hoevel had decided to get this 10-speed bicycle out. And so he starts off on his merry little journey coming out of the garage where he got his bicycle. He decides to down this hill, but down at the end of the hill, there was a turn to the right, a sharp turn to the right. And so that would require you to decrease your speed a little bit. Well, Father Hoevel is on this downward trajectory on this bicycle, doing very well until all of a sudden his coaster brake wasn't working.
He was trying to brake from his feet.
He was trying to use his foot brake.
And there was no brake.
There's no brake on a 10-speed bike
So
on a foot brake.
Did he know the brake was?
Well, he forgot about that it was a handbrake system now.
Okay.
So his execution was pretty flawed. So he forgot about how the handbrakes worked, that was the way he was supposed to be braking. So and instead of making the right-hand turn and continuing on his journey, he went right off the edge and fell 6 feet down onto another layer of concrete. So he took a flying. He looked probably like the kid in E.T., the bicycle flying across the sky. There goes Father Hoevel on a 10-speed. Whoa! So
he took off then.
Oh, Father Hoevel, yeah, he landed about 30 feet away from the edge of the pavement, so he was going pretty good. And I get to him, I find him, and he's sitting there just like on his butt, just knees up, just like looking down at himself, going stupid, stupid, stupid,
Poor
stupid.
Man.
And I go, Father, it's going to be okay. And he's like quiet, and I'm checking him out, looking to see how bad he was, because he was on Coumadin medication.
Bleeding.
And so he's
all over the
he
place.
has all these abrasions all over his arms, his legs, and through his pant legs. I can see him bleeding through his pants.
Oh my goodness.
And I go, oh geez, Father. I said, we got to get this taken care of. I said, you're bleeding out all over. And he's just going, stupid, stupid, stupid. So he's kind of chewing himself out for not braking.
Right.
And then he's sitting there quietly, and he goes, and she couldn't even call me Bob.
Oh, gee.
And
yeah, your priest is down.
Yeah, so
He'd have preferred
he's out
Bob.
there
Yeah,
hearing
nobody
all
knows
this.
Bob is out there.
Your priest is down. Your priest is down. He's just going. She couldn't even call me Bob.
I didn't think of that. Yeah,
but
so
this
she
is a
really
sense
was
of
outing
humor.
him, wasn't
This
she?
is a sense of humor. Says, she couldn't even call me Bob. And so I'm just kind of laughing with him about it. I said, "Come on, let's get your miserable ass back inside." So we took him in. I got him to his upstairs apartment. Got him into his bathroom. I grabbed a couple of towels that we had around there, and I got his pants down because I wanted to see just how bad these cuts and abrasions were. And so he had them down his arm and elbows, the contact points and stuff like that. So I'm taking care of those. But then he has them down his hip and his thighs and his knees.
He's really banged up.
Oh, he was really buggered up. And so I'm trying to stop all this bleeding, and if anyone's ever seen him with Coumadin, it just runs out like a thin, watery blood.
Geez.
And so he's just like flowing out of these abrasions.
Wow.
And so it's hard to stop
Right.
the bleeding out of abrasion when you got this Coumadin. So the only thing you really do is I wrapped his leg up really strong with wraps of this towel around it, and then I'm squeezing onto his legs
To put
try to
pressure.
build some pressure
Okay.
on all these wounds all at the same time.
Oh,
So,
looked a little funny.
well, let me draw you a picture. So there's Father Hoevel, pants down, standing at the sink. And there's Larry down on his knees, hugging his thigh and his knees and trying to put pressure on this, when in behind me walks Ruby and Carol Coe, Carol Coe was just this little butterball of a gal, just the kindest woman you would ever run across. She was probably all of 4'11", and just
Innocent.
probably, I mean, in some ways, just as quiet as could be, and just so courteous. She was a lifelong Lutheran, but when Father Hoevel was there, she started looking into and studying to become a Catholic, because she was learning and realizing there was more that she wasn't getting all together, and she wanted to know it all. And so she was on her way to joining the Catholic Church because of Father Hoevel.
Until.
Well,
No.
it wasn't this. But she comes in, and I turn over my shoulder, and there's these two women just like, mortified, and
Dear
they're
God.
holding like an armload of towels and bandages, and they just put them both on the floor, and they got the hell out of there as fast as they could, back out, because they didn't want to be around when this priest had his pants down. Here's Larry down at his knees,
Oh,
right there next to him.
It was,
I mean, the stories that were going through their minds at that point.
can't imagine.
Well, Father Hoevel, I'm still hugging on to this and acting like, no big deal, but it's a big deal. And Father Hoevel's just being kind of quiet. And about 30 seconds later, he goes, Larry? And I go, yes, Father. He goes, you're going to have to talk to those two ladies.
That was his humor, right?
Yes. You're going to have a talk with those two ladies.
Jeez.
Because I said, well, why don't you? He says, nope. He says, you're going to have a talk with those two ladies. And
That's funny.
he was just like, oh my gosh. He's like, how much worse can it get? That here I am.
Oh,
he
God.
was so embarrassed. This man couldn't handle a damn bicycle.
Yeah, it's
And that,
if they had a picture, could have replaced 1,000 words.
well, he was just, all these things are going through. So he's kind of mortified that he, was stupid and ignorant and didn't realize what kind of bicycle he had before he took off on that. So he was already, kicking himself for that. And then he's got to deal with this, like,
Yeah.
perception
Alternate
of,
lifestyle. This perception of his alter ego.
here's this man that all of a sudden, like, oh, kind of like this queer moment, kind of going on. And I'm not thinking anything else. I'm just trying to stop the bleeding on this guy.
Right.
But I tell you, the age-old question was answered in that moment.
So a friend of mine was a Protestant pastor, and he had a spinal cord injury, high level, and his cousin, who was a pastor, had Lou Gehrig's disease, and they went out, and Philip could only walk with canes and stuff, and his cousin was difficult to walk too, although they could walk, but they would help each other. And so his cousin Tommy had to go to the bathroom. And Phil said, I can't, please don't ask me to help you. But at any rate, I guess the maitre d' sees these two guys stumbling into the bathroom, and there Phil is not wanting to do this, and he walks in. And they turn, they go, it's not what you think. But sometimes, I mean, here are these poor suffering people, right? They get caught in that same situation that you and Father got caught in. He said, geez, I don't know if we explained this too much. It might sound like we're protesting too much,
Yeah, well, but it was just one of those things. But Father Hoevel's dealing with this whole manhood issue and trying to,
Lord.
be always the
fun.
tough
That's
macho guy as he goes through things. And
that's funny.
to have this go on, and I got to tell you, Ruby, Carol has passed on, but Ruby still.
Remembers?
Oh yeah. How do you forget?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a stick sharp enough to poke that man.
They really knew, though, didn't they, that you were just trying to help them? I mean, they didn't think there was anything more to it.
No, they didn't think there was anything more to it. But for Father Havel's mind, it's
Sure,
like
let's make
accusations. Accusations are as bad
We
as
need
being guilty. But it's just kind of funny. But the perceptions that all came out of this one couple who didn't have the courtesy or the capability of calling him Father.
That's
or
funny,
calling him by his name.
Now he's the priest.
So now he's your priest, like it's almost
All
derogatory.
over the town.
Your priest is down. Your priest is down. And I still have people that remember that day. This was 23 years ago.
Oh, Lord.
They always say, hey, Larry, did you ever find
Remember
your
that?
priest? They never got the follow-up. Hey, the priest is okay, everybody. We found him.
Seared into their mind.
Well, it's just kind of funny that people who are local remember those. Hey, did you ever find your priest? They remember that day. It was like everyone on the lake in the town was,
What's going on over there?
Larry's missing his priest.
God.
But it was just so funny that the all call went out everywhere, and it was just like this huge blast of volume coming off that property, and it was just one of those things. Just just hilarious. And I was thinking about Father Hoevel and how he would deal with a lot of these things that are going on in the world today in the church. And, they had to deal with a lot of this stuff back in the 40s and the 50s and 60s, watching the growth of this aberrant behavior.
Absolutely.
And it was kind of rough on him, even when he was like back at in Rome, studying at American University to be a priest back in 1939, 1940. He was on one of the last ships out of Civitavecchia, which is the port city near Rome, where the ships come in. And he was on one of the last ships that was heading to the U.S. before World War II broke out. Right, and he was...
So he was studying in Rome at the time.
Right, and he was part of the class that they came, and all you Americans or Brits, this is your last opportunity to leave the country. We can't guarantee your security if you stay. And this is from Mussolini's people telling him to...
You got to go.
Right. It'd be wise for you to leave. And so he did. He took the wise thing against his own, desire, but he left and went back to the States and finished his training here, a lot of it with Archbishop John Knoll, who ended up ordained him, and he was one of Knoll's guys from start to finish.
He was a good man of integrity,
wisdom. There was a naturalness about those two. Knoll was a lot more of like an egghead, strategist and thinker and all like that. But Hoevel was more of a get out there and do it, a forceful, a man getting things done, pushing things. Let's take on the hard tasks. He always wanted the hard work. He was always after the tough stuff.
You were saying Father was a witness to some of this aberrant conditions in the church.
He was
lavender nonsense.
He was an apparently younger. His pictures, showcases he was a very attractive fellow. The women were drawn to him and had a natural attraction to him that were trying to get him to leave the priesthood, or not even to stop the training and all like that. Why don't you come build a life with me? These types of things. And
sure.
he would get marriage proposals from women.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, but then he also got propositions from men.
So he saw some of the very beginnings of the takeover of.
Well, he saw what was going on at Rome, at that time at American University and around the halls around the Vatican.
Nobody would even have. I couldn't wrap my head around that. What that was all about.
Oh man, if your head isn't that way and your pendulum doesn't swing that way, let's put it that way.
That's interesting, yeah.
And then you're there and you're in it, and all of a sudden you're this farm kid from, middle United States, and all of a sudden you're over there and somebody's wanting you to come over and, join our garden party.
Did he ever sense that this thing was going to get out of hand, or that there was going to be almost a takeover or
I don't know. We never talked about that. He just said, the slippery slope all started with the Second World War, and that's when Vatican II really started.
Okay.
He says, and that was always troublesome, was that this Vatican II was going to be resetting the table, so to speak.
Right.
And he was a little uncomfortable with that because he grew up with the strong traditions and things like that, and wanted to kind of honor those things. And here it was all being sort of changed.
Right.
It's like the menu is being changed as dinner is being served.
Absolutely.
And so it wasn't what he was expecting, but it was what he had. And being a good, obedient fellow, he did the best with what he had.
Yeah, he was his fidelity and his staying with the virtues and the purity in a natural, good way.
Well, he had such a love for the Blessed Mother.
Did he?
Oh, yeah. Just quietly unusual in that his regard and his admiration for her, as keeping the Holy Family, together. He saw that as, she was the strength in that, just as his mother was the strength in their family to keep them together during the Depression and all like this that they lived through. It was tough. So it's kind of hard to feed your kids on a bag of corn and a couple bones, but they found a way to eat, and they never went hungry, but they went without shoes and things like that from time to time.
Right.
Which I guess gives you tough souls.
I guess it does, yeah. He was a very special man. I never really had a chance to sit and talk and meet with him, although I knew he was in the circle.
Yeah. Well, he would never really talk about himself unless that was the focus on something that was like an artifact.
Okay.
When he was turning over his guns to me, he was a hunter and had shotguns, and he had rifles for target shooting and things like this.
He was the armory.
He was, and
Anybody
Noel
want a gun?
Noel liked to go pheasant hunting, and Bishop Sheen, when he would come, he wanted to join in with the guys.
So they gave him a...
Well, Sheen was kind of not real strong. Because, well, he was dealing with the effects of tuberculosis still. So he was always going to be a little bit slight and not always the most physical of the guys at the table. But he wanted to be out there with them and walking along. But Father Hoevel, in his wisdom, realized that probably wasn't the best thing to give Fulton Sheen a shotgun. So he gave him a 22, which had much less of a kick to it.
Right.
But he gave him a beautiful 22.
Yeah.
And this 22 I now have, this rifle. And it's a hex barrel, and it's worth a lot of money.
Have you used that? Have you used the gun?
No, I haven't fired it. It's in too good a condition, and I don't want to. I know it'll fire, but it's graded out. They have a grading. It starts at 100 for perfect, right out of the box. This one graded out at a 97.5. Yeah, so that's basically what happens when you cut the tags off it. So anyway, this gun's in like immaculate condition, and but this is the one that Sheen would walk along with the rest of the guys.
Part of the manly crew.
The rabbit, pow pow, tink.
Did Archbishop Sheen get anything? Did he shoot?
I have no idea if he ever shot anything or not, but he was out there. Give him the rabbit. Let him hold the rabbit.
Yeah, get the rabbit.
Yeah.
Well, rabbit. We were watching that program after we got done with the podcast last night, and I mean, if anybody caught a rabbit and that was food for what was that thing? What do they call it? Where they go into the wilderness?
Oh, we were watching OLaMan.
Yeah,
on the
OLaMan.
History Channel, yeah.
And so that rabbit was like extra special if you caught one of them for feeding yourself. So.
Well, they say a rabbit in those conditions was good for about a week's worth of protein in their diet, but it was only about 3,000 calories. So when you're out there in that cold, you're burning through the calories. But hey, anything is better than nothing.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's a great show. Watching Alone, because we were talking about how it's a study in human psychology.
Sure. What do you do under stress?
Right, and how you react under certain times. What do you do? What would you do just to survive and to eat at this point? And people do some pretty nasty things.
Right.
When they're pushed to that.
Yeah. Well,
so humans are capable of doing some pretty nasty things.
Well, unfortunately, it's all.
We're seeing that all around us, but we won't make it all about the doom and gloom. But that was Father Hoevel and his event there with the bicycle. He didn't ride the bicycle again.
Oh, he didn't.
Mm-mm. No, he was that bicycle sat in the garage, and I think it was such a blast to his integrity, his manhood, or whatever his feelings.
Really?
That I never saw him back on the bike again.
Jeez.
And that was kind of a sad, but he probably felt, better safe than sorry.
Don't do it again, right?
Right,
Yeah,
because, he is probably lucky as all get out, because, the way he fell and that far, he could have probably died.
Could have had a head injury or anything.
Exactly.
Like that, right? Yeah.
He's probably just lucky that he landed on his butt, but he didn't end up there. He probably landed on his side and he rolled over onto his butt by the time I got there, because no one was going out to help him there,
Just the loudspeaker call for the
it's like
entire city.
That was the thing. And I where the hell is he? Because I couldn't see him from the door because he was down over the abutment. And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't see anything." "Well, he's down over there." And so I'm running out there, and I'm just getting there. I just see this guy bleeding out, and it's like, oh man, he's having his moment. But it was just so funny. She couldn't even call me Bob, But that was a sense of humor coming through. It's like,
It's, oh Lord.
I say, "Oh, come on, then, let's get you home and get you cleaned up." And then it just started the next part of the story. But if anyone ever sees Ruby sometime, feel free to ask her, about the
Priest
the
now.
priest in his pants down, bleeding out. And
Just give you a full description of what a photo would have looked like.
well, I got the bleeding to stop, so at least my pressure tactic with the blankets wrapped around him actually worked. But surprisingly, it didn't take that long. It was only several minutes, but I think he clotted up there pretty good. And I got some bandages on him, and then got some fresh pants on him, and he was back at it like nothing happened. But he kind of stayed in his chair then the rest of the day and, rehabbed.
Poor guy.
He did come down for dinner and make an appearance.
That chicken dinner you made him?
Well, no, we didn't make him chicken. He got a steak that night and cherry pie.
Oh,
Yeah, you could always get him out with cherry pie,
okay.
especially if there was a scoop of ice cream. That was always his favorite.
God love
Because he'd always say, "Is there any dessert tonight?" I said, "Yeah, we got pie." "What kind?" "Hope it's not apple."
him. Hope it's not.
So he always wanted his cherry pie. So that's kind of our story for today. So in the meantime, I love you, and we'll be back.